Welcome to Lift Your Legacy. My name is Jacob Rupp, father, husband, and rabbi. And each week we bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unlock your inner potential and create change that will impact the future. Thank you for listening, and let's get to it. I want to first pay you a compliment, if I could, that of all the people that came and spoke when I was a rabbi at UCLA, I don't think anyone had the ability to just kind of grab the kids with your story. It was phenomenal. I loved your story in Mishpacha. So I've been kind of a long time fan for a while. And this might be the latest, I don't know what you can say, Gilgul of what you're doing.
Gilgul, yeah.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit, I guess, your story is so good and I want to direct people to where you talk about that as a whole. But now that you are, where did you study? You went your Harvard, where were you?
I did my undergraduate at UC Santa Barbara, not so far from you, there in San Diego and LA. Then I did a master's at the London School of Economics, another master's at the University of Vienna, and then straight into Talmudic Academies of Jerusalem to learn in yeshiva.
There was somewhere in Asia, though, wasn't there? Like three years in China or something?
I didn't spend 3 years. I spent 5 years studying Mandarin. I lived there. I did an internship for the Jiangsu Province of Education, and I've actually been there 3 times in the past year. I was kind of surging again back into my life, the whole Asia connection.
So, okay, I love it. It's so good. So tell me, it's amazing. I feel like you're 300 years old, having lived all of these lives already. It's fantastic. Why is this? What is Wisdom Tribe Global? How is this the greatest expression of everything you've learned up until this point?
I find myself to be a bridge builder. I think my parents really invested early on to give me a diverse life experience. We traveled every summer. I think we hit some 40 countries as a family, and I love cultures. I love trying to learn and then integrate back in. And before my path onto the Torah lifestyle, I was also somebody who was searching, who was into diversity, and then coming and accepting a Torah observant lifestyle and looking around and seeing all the beautiful different diverse streams within our own wisdom. And then looking and seeing a whole world of people, very smart people, intelligent people, well-meaning people that are seeking to help cultivate themselves, to become better people, to build better communities, build better societies. It was a no-brainer for me to take, this node of energy that I've been part of and I've learned so much from here in Jerusalem and connect it with all those nodes globally of the movers, the shakers, and thinkers of the world.
When you're looking at information and different ways of explaining things, different approaches that people go through, East, West, etc., are you finding that the theme is essentially repeated in the Torah? Are they new and different themes? How are you looking at things and trying to figure out when you hear something new, where it fits into your own practice? That's
a really great question. There's a Kabbalist that sits in Givat Shaul, a neighborhood here in Jerusalem. He's not a voodoo hoochie hoot Kabbalist. He's not known by many people. He just sits and learns. His library is voluminous, as an amazing, amazing person. And he once told me that there's no such thing as sheker, as falsehood. There's just misapplied truth. And I find this motif, this paradigm, to be very relevant, that you can find life wisdom. The Talmud says, Chachmas b'goyim tamin. If you find wisdom in the general nations, definitely believe it. But that doesn't mean it's true in the way they're expressing it, in the emphases they have, in the way it's relating to other parts. And for me, my understanding of seeing people who are searching and looking in different wisdoms is to take those sparks of wisdom, those pieces of truth, and try to align them in what I understand to be the proper framework, or in Kabbalistic terms, partsuf. So it's got a quite ethereal and ethereal theory and framework, but it has really practical application in my life.
And as someone that has been so exposed to the diversity of thought and the variety of opinions, and obviously you're saying that seeing all of these different people in their very intellectual phases and methodologies, was it a moment for you when you clicked in, you're like, okay, so Judaism is true? What really ultimately pushed the barrier where you're like, this is going to be my main pillar and everything else is going to be compared to this?
Gotcha. Okay. So I was giving you an answer more in recent years, how I'm understanding my personal assimilation of various wisdoms. But to go back 10 years, 10 years ago, before these were coming down, you would have found Jake with dreadlocks, just fresh out of Santa Barbara, skateboarding around the streets of London. And really, I had really sampled a real diverse array of life wisdoms. I had chanted with the Bhagavad Gitas, I'd sat with the Zens, I'd blissed out with Native Americans and chanting. And truth be told, the last place that I looked, and if you asked me at age 19, where's there truth in the wisdom? I would say many places, but Judaism is the last place. I thought it was just a very stale, uninteresting body of wisdom. But I would say it was a blend between personal experiences in my life, trying to really, it took a long time for me to be able to humble and hear the messages that were coming in and guiding me towards my own roots, my own path. And then being able to start to assimilate some of the ideas, the profound, life-changing and integrated ideas of the Torah. It was a cross between that, because when your heart is closed, if you're not open-minded, as I was for many years, no matter what people tell you, nothing's going to come in. But once you've had a bit of experience and be able to open up and loosen the ego, you start to be able to assimilate ideas and think and really be able to rationally engage something that would have been an emotional barrier before. So that was the process: a little bit of head, a little bit of heart.
How have you taken you're dabbling in all kinds of esoteric, not kind of the main themes of Judaism. How do you take these sort of on the shelf ideas and apply them, and to what extent do you apply them when you're speaking to, and I guess just tell, if you could tell my audience, like, just who you're talking to when you're teaching.
Who am I talking to when I'm teaching? You can maybe hear it from a bit of what I've said before. I love diversity. I love a diverse life experience. Today, I spent 4 hours teaching Tai Chi, which is my form of mindfulness, to 120 19-year-old Shana Aleph, young Jewish teenagers in Israel for their first year before college. And we were out in the forest for 4 hours doing 30-minute sessions of Tai Chi and Qigong. And so sometimes I'm talking to them. 2 months ago, you'd found me in Singapore speaking to the executive director of JP Morgan and his wealth management team, and talking about the same ideas, really trying to clear out static that's blocking us, that's in our way, and tap into to peak performance, to that latent superhero within all of us, but that's blocked out by so much emotional baggage or neuroses and just the general static of the world. So in the mindfulness sense, that's what it is. It's closing out the browser tabs. I'm looking right now, I give this analogy, I right now have no less than 12 different browser tabs open on one of my Chrome windows. That's just one window, right? Sooner or later, it's going to get too much. My video is going to start slowing down, my audio. So I realized I have to start closing out tabs. And for me, that's what mindfulness practice particularly is closing out tabs. And where a bit of that work stops is where I believe the work of Judaism, the work of integrating and elevating the physical world starts.
All right, this is great. Go into it. So you're sitting there, you're pitching either, young 19-year-old kids, or you're pitching the head of JP Morgan. You don't have, whatever, an entire year or multiple years to work through it. What are the major points that you're hitting on to help them, so to speak, close the browsers or the windows? So
check it out. I'd like to tell this. I did my master's degree. It was actually a program set up by the European Union. I was one of 3 Americans, a consortium of 45 students from 22 different countries outside of Europe, brought to Europe to study globalization. And I love history. I love the world. So we studied global history, London School of Economics, University of Vienna, different focuses. But the main theme that I've come to understand is that we're really living in tremendously exciting times. And we're entering a new epoch of global history. We're entering the digital age. And this is more transformative than the Industrial Revolution, more transformative than the Neolithic Revolution, when humans settled down, into agricultural, urban-based centers. It's happening so quickly. Just to give you some numbers here, which puts it in perspective. In, I believe, 1876, electricity, a disruptive technology of its time, was released onto the US market. And it took 50 years for it to penetrate to 1/4 of the US population, okay? Some years later, radio came out, it took about 40 years. Some years later, the telephone took about 30 years. So again, a disruptive technology, but 30 years to assimilate the profound psychological, sociological changes. Personal computer, 1960s, 1970s, takes 20 years. Mobile phone, 1980s, takes 10 years. The internet takes 8 years. Facebook, right? 5 years, 25% of the US population. Instagram takes 3 years. And of course, Angry Birds 2, 45 days to reach 50 million people. That's global. That's not just the US, but it shows you that we're on an incredibly, we're on the precipice of a very, very significant exponential curve of technological proliferation. And it's changing our society. It's changing our neural wetware. Our minds are changing. Our relationships are changing. Our religion, so to speak, our sense and seeking of meaning is changing. So this disruption is what I believe has caused the proliferation of what I understand to be the mindfulness movement, people seeking deeper connection to self, to community. You could look at purpose-driven businesses. You could look at B corporations, benefit corporations, all part of a movement that's been surging the past 10, 15 years as part of the digital age.
So how do you see that one play off of the other? Is it because there's just so much stuff that's going on that the farmer in the 1800s didn't have to compete with, that we're trying to find these quiet channels, or is it something else?
It's certainly knocked us off our rocker a little bit. There's major challenges just cognitively. Microsoft did a study in 2002 studying the human attention span, and they found that the human could focus for an average of 12 seconds on a given subject. Okay. Now, if you take attention span as a measure of intelligence, there's many ways to measure. I asked corporate executives and teenagers alike, are we smarter because of technology? Yes, no, we have Google. Does Google make us stupider? Does anybody know how to drive anywhere without Waze anymore? Does anybody remember their mother's phone number or their girlfriend's, their wife's? Good questions. But let's just take attention span, the capacity to focus on one subject for a given duration of time. 10 years after they do this first study, 2002, they do it again, 2012, and it drops from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. So if you look at attention span as a metric of intelligence, which arguably could be one of the factors, we've lost 1/3 of our capacity to think deeply in a decade. And that's disruptive. That's causing people realize something is happening. And the same phenomenon, the same disruption is happening in relationships. There's a decrease of social capital, decrease of empathy. There's been incredible research. Sherry Turkell out of MIT Media Lab has done research on the playground, teenagers, middle schoolers, measuring the levels of empathy, human connection, and astonishing dropping, like dropping 6 years back. So it's where a 15-year-old has as much empathy as a 9-year-old on the playground now because of the digital age. So I don't think the idea, summing up, is that the digital age is a terrible thing. We have incredible opportunity to connect to knowledge, to connect to people. But there's serious disruption that's causing a shift, and people are seeking a way to ingrain and to retain the humanity in that shift. And that's why I think the surge of interest in things like mindfulness and Torah wisdom are coming from.
So work that out a little bit with me. How do I bring more mindfulness? How do I bring more calm and empathy into my life?
Whoo! Let's start where you wake up. People out there listening, or yourself, Jacob, you wake up, do you set your alarm on a phone, smartphone?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you find that smartphone, after you turn off the ringer and maybe a snooze, 1 or 2, do you find that piece of device, that medium that you're using to wake up, to be a distraction for you in starting your day?
Yes.
Right? You get some notifications, you stay in bed checking, supposed to be washing your hands, saying modani, but okay, we'll check, we'll scroll a little bit. Many people relate to me that they could easily get sucked into 45 minutes on their phone a day. So just one example, I'm just starting with the beginning of the day. There's so many examples of this, is to live a life of deeper intention. As my good friend who really got me into the mindfulness movement, opened the door for me, Levi Felix, who I should take a second to mention. Levi just passed away at the age of 33, tragically, at the beginning of this year. He was the founder of the Digital Detox. And, let me take a second to tell a story. Levi was a young executive. We'd actually thrown a music festival together in California back in 2006. 11 years running now, Chila Vista. You can check it out if you're in the area. Chila Vista in Isla Vista. So Levi was working for a tech company, and he basically just burned out 80 hours a week, collapsed on the floor, was hospitalized, and basically given a prescription from the doctor. He had ruptured an internal organ from stress. So they sent him a prescription to take a vacation. He came to Israel. We hung out a bit. Finally, he found his place in Cambodia, an island off the coast of Cambodia, which had no technology, complete zero, that's it, digital detox. And he spent a year and a half mindfully living with intention, waking up, journaling, doing yoga, tapping into his feelings, reflecting. And he spends a year and a half doing this, lands back in Silicon Valley circa 2010. And the digital age, boom, is happening. The iPhone's out on the market. Everybody's walking around like this. Their thumbs are going, he's used to a life of full presence, looking people in the eyes, feeling the breeze on his face, chewing his food. And all he sees is this everywhere he goes. So Levi starts out 10, 15 people, some of our friends working at Facebook, Twitter, takes him out for a digital detox retreat. 2 days from Friday to Sunday, no technology, no work talk. And even you have to have a camp name. You have to come up with a names because, some prominent people there. So my name was Professor Goji Berry. All right. Everyone's got their name. And to have a real mindful, dialed in digital detox experience. This was his gift to the world and tragically passed away this year. I mean, Levi's been featured in Good Morning America, Forbes magazine, the New Yorker magazine had an 8-pager on it. It's really an incredible thing. Check it out. But one of Levi's basic teachings is, hey, get an alarm clock. If this device right here is going to impede you from your 20 minutes of yoga or journaling or saying the blessings that you want to say, whatever it is, then remove this from the bedroom. Don't bring it in, get an alarm clock. So just tip 1 in living a more mindful, intentional life, remove the barriers that are obstructing you from living out know what your intention is, and remove the barriers that are in the way from living that out.
Which is such an interesting concept. I heard I have like the entire diatribe planned, but I saw that Conor McGregor, speaking of the insensitivity of people, not to saying he's whatever, but fine. But he was going through it was the first time I had seen like a crib style thing in like 10 years, and he was going through his house and he opens up his refrigerator and he shows all of his lean meats and all of his salmon and all of his healthy food. And then he said, I have no cake. I have rules that say that no refined sugar comes in here because I'll eat it. And for me, it took me back to it's such an unbelievable idea of, I guess you say, a musar, where you see someone whose entire fortune and entire success is determined on the physical build of his body and what he puts into it. And even a guy like that is not going to tempt himself to have something that he could go and eat. And so you're saying the same thing. Like a lot of us are trying to say, how do I develop better skills around technology? You're saying, no, you're not going to, don't bother with that. Just take it out as an option.
Well, taking it out is one skill. I don't think that the path is to be a Luddite. For some people, not having a smartphone might be the right move. That's cool. As a general principle, I don't think I embrace it. I think they're fantastic. Do I abuse them as well? Yes, I do. But it is developing smart techniques. And one of those smart techniques is to unplug every once in a while. So me as a religious Jew, from Friday to Friday, that's it. Friday to Saturday night, it's off. Many people in the non-Jewish secular world have adopted a similar digital detox routine because at some point you just need to push it out. But let me take you through one interesting, talk about intelligent design. Very, very, what do I want to say? It's the word controversial topic, right? Intelligent design. But that's how we have to design our lives. We have to be intelligent designers. You talk about product design, user-centered interface. We need to design our lives like Colin did, to be intelligent, to work with our deepest will and to fill it out. So I was walking through Google headquarters in San Francisco with an interesting guy who's the chief title. He just left just last week, Google, but he first was the lead project coder of Gmail, an engineer, led the global project team on Gmail for almost a decade, switched over into HR, where his job title up until last week was superintendent of high performance learning at Google. And he ran all of their mindfulness workshops. And he walked me into the kitchen. He said, Yaakov, check this out. Here's the kitchen at Google, right? Really nice kitchenette. It's got everything you want. He said, check out how we've designed it. What do you see? And I looked and I saw a bowl of fruit. First thing I saw on the island countertop. I said, bowl of fruit? He said, exactly. What else do you see? Bottled water. Great. That's at eye level. Then I went down a little deeper and they have drawers. And the first drawers are like Cliff Bars, healthy Cliff Bars. The second drawer was, something a little less healthy. And the third drawer, they had Snickers. Google doesn't want to be draconian and force the people not to drink Coke. But what they will do is make intelligent design decisions, and the healthy juices and water will be on top, which catches your eye. And then if you want the Snickers or the Coke, you're going to have to work a little harder. It's still there, but just slight changes in the way that you design an environment can encourage positive behavior. And I thought that was brilliant.
It's such an unbelievable mind shift. And I guess, you're much more in the tech world than I am, and maybe you can attest to this being true or not. But I think that the idea that the future is a world that we can essentially choose, and that idea of intelligent design applying to our lives, as opposed to essentially, well, I'm stuck with this job, and so therefore I have to cut this out of my life. And I think that the big, shift that people are having that's either successful or unsuccessful is, I think that successful people, and the whole premise of me making the show is it's not necessarily monetarily successful, although I think that this is a theme as well, is the idea of choosing. What do you want? Do you want freedom? Where do you want to live? How are you going to support that lifestyle? As opposed to saying, I'm making $60,000, $80,000 a year, which, relegates me to this neighborhood, which relegates me to this kind of school, et cetera. Is that true? Is that what you're seeing in the technology
it's
world?
And it's part of this incredible new paradigm we're opening up in the digital world. And the pros and the cons, right? They talk a lot about nomadic knowledge workers or the gig economy. So for the good and bad, there's a gig economy, meaning you can work for wherever you want. A friend of mine runs a company called Unsettled, and he's got like meetups. So he'll rent out a beautiful place in Bali with good Wi-Fi and get some good yoga teachers in there. And all these digital nomads who can do their job anywhere will all of a sudden converge for a month. And they'll live there like they're paying rent, and they'll just be there in Bali. He'll do one in Nicaragua, he'll do one in Morocco. It's an incredibly empowering lifestyle. I don't want to say it's utopia because there's also challenges of the gig economy. People are being paid less with less protection, job security. But I do think one of the major overarching themes of entering the digital age is this empowerment, that we have the ability to connect to the knowledge we want to, the information, the networks and the people we want to. And unlike 50 years ago, where it was just get a good job, come home at the end of the day, there's an integration between people's deepest desires, what they want to do, and be able to make that happen in a real financial professional way. And for me, that's what we call in Torah a yichud, of the or and the kli, meaning to say the or is the vision. It's the 1960s, go out there, visionary, change the world, right? The 60s didn't stay. That light without a proper vessel, it's like you throwing a bunch of wine at somebody that doesn't have a cup. It's just going to splash everywhere. That's what happened to the 60s, right? It was a very visionary time. People were thinking there was change, but not much there to hold it. The 1980s shifting was a paradigm of business, Reaganomics. We're going to corporate mergers, acquisitions, not much inspiration light, but building a lot of that vessel. And I think right now what we're seeing is the 1960s light coming into the professional framework of the 80s. And you see people who are very inspired, very connected to change and to vision, but being able to live that out in a way that's sustainable, long-term, and practical in the professional world.
That's unbelievable. I love that. Now, just practically, you mentioned you're talking to the guy that started, Gmail, and you're walking through the halls of Google, and you're traveling all over the place. How did you get started, and what kind of tips would you give to a person that's trying to build a global, I guess you can say, brand that's making a big impact? What did you do practically, and how did you sort of start to see this take off?
Invest in social capital. There's financial capital. You're stacking your chips, chip. There's human capital, which is getting the knowledge you need, okay, getting people that are smart. But social capital is the power of a group. And I found, was very fortunate to find an amazing community centered around Wisdom 2.0, founded by a guy named Soren Gordhammer. And this Wisdom 2.0 is a conference that ties together the leaders in tech, in business, in mindfulness. And I went and I saw this, and I heard about this through my friend Levi, who just passed away. And I looked and I saw this incredible world of business CEOs and mindfulness teachers and purpose and neuroscientists. It was incredible. And the thing I saw there that really, I saw my opening was that there was a lot of wisdom out there, some coming from Native Americans, some coming from Buddhism, some coming from Vipassana and the Vedic scriptures of India. And I saw a pretty large Jewish presence. Many of the leading Buddhist teachers, John Kabat-Zinn, Jack Kornfield, we could say Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, Dan Siegel, I could go on. They are coming from a Jewish background. I saw an incredibly large Jewish presence, both on the tech and the mindfulness side, but I saw no Jewish wisdom. And I said, okay, somebody's got to do it. And I just decided to go for it. And I really invested in this community and making sure I was at every event and trying to get out to Dublin for Wisdom 2.0 Europe, trying to get out to Singapore for Wisdom 2.0 Asia, trying to get out to Hawaii for the Intersect, which is an unconference, no agenda, just 50 people on the Big Island with just openness. And I invested in that community. I invested without trying to get and network in this. I really wanted to listen to people, to share my passion, to build a bridge and to listen to people's passions. And I would say for anyone looking, find a place that has high social capital, high trust networks, a group of people who are sincere, and go in there and don't be cheese. Don't go in there cheese and I'm this, I'm that. People smell right through that. Go in there and be legit, be genuine, be vulnerable, share with people. And I feel that that's been, amongst a lot of other complex factors in this journey, that's really been the shining part of this for me.
Amazing. One last question for you, which is a little bit multifaceted. As a person going into, when the digital age is ramping up rapidly, what are the major pitfalls that you perceive that a person should guard themselves against? And what is the greatest way to capitalize on the opportunity and sort of ride the wave?
To thrive in their personal life, professional life, any open-ended in the digital age?
You run with it.
When I think of pitfalls, I mean, we're only on the verge here. We're talking about iPhones and we're on the verge of artificial intelligence, of machine learning, autonomous vehicles, AI assistants. There's so much that's happening. VR, AR, my goodness. We're just on the precipice. This is something bigger than any of us know. Blockchain technology. Oh my God.
I don't even know what that is. What is blockchain technology?
Blockchain is the technology that's underlying cryptocurrencies like Ether and Bitcoin, smart contracts. Wow, there's so much. And part of what I'd love to do with Wisdom Tribe is to unwrap these things, to find out, in Torah consciousness, we believe that if you look at an orange, the orange is a great thing. It comes down, but you can't eat it. The whole thing doesn't give you calories. In fact, the peel is very, very bitter and can make you sick. And even the seeds, you don't want to eat those, but you want to get the flesh. You want to extract out the good and leave away the peel, right? This is a very deep idea. So I'm very fascinated to go in. I believe the Torah approach is that every one of these technologies, every one of them it's brought into the world for a positive purpose. And we have a clear ethical code to be more caring, to increase mitzvahs in the world, to increase Torah learning and education in the world. And each of these things, I believe, can be harnessed for that purpose. However, it's very, very naive to come in and think any of these is going to bring the Messiah. There's actually a lot of people who believe, the singularity movement, that there's this messianic age that's coming about that's going to be birthed by technology. To me, that's not the case. And the first thing to do is to identify the goal. Let's throw on some VR. In 5 years, we're going to be doing this interview. We're going to be VR. We're going to be sitting at a Yankee game, front row. Then we're going to jump to Dubai. But it's going to be immersive, right? So we have to figure out what is the goal. So say you and I enter a VR experience. Okay, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but our goal is to connect. Our goal is to build a level of empathy, a level of connection between two people. So before you enter any technology, right, have your goal clear. Facebook. Great example. This is a social network that allows me to connect. We're sharing this on Facebook Live. I can keep posted with my friends who I can pick up the phone and call to see how everyone's doing, and they can see tangentially my life. I think it's great. It's superficial. Yes, it's not friends aren't friends. Yes, I believe that as well. But there's something beautiful in it. If we don't acknowledge that, we're just fooling ourselves. But let's be clear. My goal is to spend time connecting with people. So when I pick this thing up, and I go like this to scroll, maybe I'm connecting with people. But when I put it down, I'm done with it. And all of a sudden, 3 seconds later, I pick it up and I'm doing this again. Who's controlling me? Is it my ratzon, that higher desire I set to have this social network be a facilitator of positive connections? Or has the technology itself taken over and brought in some of the more unsavory elements? So get the goals clear, go in and find out what the benefits are and where the pitfalls are, and do your best to navigate through like a dancer. One last wisdom from my friend Reb Gideon Levinson of Amshinov. Judaism, avodat Hashem, service of God, it's a dance. It's not a religion. A religion means you go like this and you down. A dance is constantly checking the levels like a DJ. You got to come up with the treble sometime, a little down with the bass, on the left speaker, the right speaker, a little bit of chesed here, a little bit of gevura, better watch out here. And we need to constantly be dancing and constantly be smiling and do our best to make sure our entire interactions with the world are with consciousness and with a good, pure heart.
Beautiful. Rabbi Yaakov Lehman, how do people find you and follow you on all of your fantastic journeys?
Check out Wisdom Tribe on Facebook. We also developed recently a creative agency to service other purpose-driven businesses and other change makers. That's called Tribe Creative. You can check us out at Tribe Creative Global or wisdomtribe.global. My email is Yaakov@wisdomtribe.global. Would love to connect with anybody.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I am Jacob. This is great.
There you have it, folks, another inspiring episode. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please share this with your friends and to like us over on Rabbi Rupp through Facebook or on YouTube. And the more that we're able to get these important messages out, the more that we can really make an impact in the world. So I encourage you, please, to stay tuned. We have a ton of amazing speakers coming up, and also to tell your friends about it. Thank you very much.